You know when you see a headline and you just kind of stop and think, wait a second, how do they know that? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're pulling back the curtain on how people find things out. We're going to demystify the world of research so you can become a way smarter, more critical consumer of all the information that's thrown at you every day. All right, let's get into it. You know, I absolutely love this quote because at its heart, research isn't some scary, complicated thing only for people in lab coats. Nope, it's actually deeply human. It all starts with that little spark of curiosity, a question, but then it adds a system, a structure, to that curiosity so we can find a real solid answer. Okay, so let's put a more official label on it. The key words to really latch onto here are systematic and deliberate. This isn't just aimless searching online. It's a planned, step-by-step process. And here's the most important part. It has to be replicable. That means someone else could take your exact recipe, follow your steps, and get a similar result. That's the secret sauce. That's what gives research its credibility. So why do we bother with all this? What's the end game for this whole organized curiosity thing? Well, it pretty much boils down to 4 main goals, and they build on each other in a really logical way. Let's use an example. Imagine we're talking about movie ticket sales. First, you do research just to describe what's happening. Hey, ticket sales are down 15% for teenagers. Okay, that's step 1. But then you want to explain it. Well, why? It's because of the rise in streaming services. See? We're going deeper. From there, you can try to predict what might happen. We think a new social media campaign could boost sales by 10%. And finally, you try to influence the outcome. You run that campaign and see if your prediction was right. Describe, explain, predict, and influence. All right, so to hit any of those goals, researchers need to collect information, what we call data. And generally speaking, that data lives in 2 very different but equally valuable worlds. On one side, you've got quantitative research. Just think quantity. This is the world of numbers, stats, and measurable stuff. A quantitative question would be, how many cups of coffee do you buy each week? But on the other side, you have qualitative research. Think quality. This is all about the stories, the experiences, the why behind the numbers. A qualitative question isn't how many coffees, but what makes you pick one coffee shop over all the others? It's looking for the rich, detailed narrative. But here's the cool part. You don't always have to choose. What if you want the numbers and the story? Well, that's where mixed methods comes in. It's about combining both approaches to get a much richer, more complete picture. So for example, you could track how many people click a certain button on a website. That's your quantitative data. But then you could actually interview those people to find out why they clicked it or what they found confusing. That's your qualitative data. And together, wow, that gives you a much more powerful understanding of what's really going on. So how do we actually go about collecting all this data? Well, you can think of researchers as having this big toolkit, and picking the right tool always depends on the job at hand, on the specific question you're trying to answer. And I mean, this toolkit is seriously packed. You've got your classic questionnaires and surveys, you've got one-on-one interviews, you've got focus groups. You can even just observe people's behavior or run controlled experiments or dig through documents that already exist. Each tool is designed for a very specific task. Let's put 2 of the most common tools head to head. Questionnaires are amazing when you need to reach a massive number of people quickly and efficiently. But interviews, they're all about depth, not breadth. You might only talk to a handful of people, but you're going to get incredibly rich, detailed, personal stories. It's that classic trade-off. Do you want to go wide or do you want to go deep? Now, here's something that's absolutely crucial. It doesn't matter if you're building a massive survey or just prepping for one interview. Everything, and I mean everything, comes down to the quality of the questions you ask. And these questions really come in 2 main flavors. You've got your open-ended questions, which are like saying, tell me about your experience with... They're fantastic for just exploring, because people might tell you things you never even thought to ask about. Then you have closed-ended questions, which give people a set of options to choose from, like multiple choice or a rating scale. These are way more efficient to analyze, but, you might lose some of that rich detail. And even within that closed-ended world, you've got a ton of options. It could be a simple yes or no, it could be multiple choice, it could be one of those strongly agree to strongly disagree scales. You can even ask people to rank their preferences. The real skill is picking the exact format that's going to get you the specific info you're looking for. But listen, none of this matters. Not the method, not the question type, if you forget the single most important rule of research. And it's so simple. Garbage in, garbage out. If your questions are confusing or biased or just poorly worded, your data is going to be totally worthless. The clarity of your questions is absolutely non-negotiable. Okay, this brings us to the final and maybe the most critical piece of the puzzle. We've done the work, we've collected the data, but how do we know if it's any good? How do we know if we can actually trust the results? Well, it all comes down to two big ideas: reliability and validity. First up, reliability. The best way to think about this is one word: consistency. So imagine a bathroom scale. If you step on it 3 times in a row and get 3 completely different weights, that scale is not reliable. A research method is reliable if it gives you consistent, repeatable results time and time again. Then we have validity, and this is all about accuracy. Is your method actually measuring the thing you think you're measuring? Let's go back to that scale. It could be super reliable. It tells you you're 150 pounds every single time you step on it. But if you're actually 155 pounds, that scale is not valid. It's consistent, but it's consistently wrong. It's not hitting the true target. And this target analogy just nails the difference. Look at that first scenario: high reliability, low validity. See how all the arrows are clustered tightly together? That's the reliability, but they're way off from the bullseye. That's the lack of validity. It's consistent, but it's consistently wrong. Now check out the second one: low reliability, high validity. The arrows are all over the place, not consistent, but they're kinda centered around the bullseye. It's accurate on average, maybe, but way too inconsistent to be useful. And that brings us to the goal, the gold standard: high reliability and high validity. The arrows are packed tightly together, right in the center of the bullseye. That means you are consistently and accurately hitting your target. That's what good research looks like. So there you have it. From the 4 purposes of research to the 2 worlds of data, all the way to reliability and validity, you now have the basic toolkit to look at a study or a news report with a much sharper eye. Which leads me to a final question for you. Now that you know the tools of the trade, what kinds of biases or weaknesses or hidden flaws might be hiding in the information sources you trust and use every single day?